Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We're reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Lila, chapter 4, verse 190. We'll read till 205 and then I'll speak. Gopika darshini Krishnera Badhe Prafullata Se Madhurya Badhe Yara Nahika Samata. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. When Lord Krishna sees the gopis, his joy increases and his unparalleled sweetness increases also. Text 191. Excuse me. Amara darshini Krishna paila ita sukha ei sukhe gopira prafulla angamukha. Translation. The gopis think Krishna has obtained so much pleasure by seeing me. That thought increases the fullness and beauty of their faces and bodies. Text 192. Gopi Shobha Dekhi Krishnera Shobha Badheyata. Krishna Shobha Dekhi Gopira Shobha Badhetata. Translation. The beauty of Lord Krishna increases at the sight of the beauty of the gopis. And the more the gopis see Lord Krishna's beauty, the more their beauty increases. Text 193. Ei mata paraspara padhe hudahudi, paraspara padhe keha mukha nahi mudhi. Translation. In this way, a competition takes place between them in which no one acknowledges defeat. 194. Kintu Krishnera sukha haya gopi rupa gune, tanra sukhe sukha vridhi haye gopi gane. Translation. Krishna, however, derives pleasure from the beauty and good qualities of the gopis. And when the gopis see his pleasure, the joy of the gopis increases. 195. Ateva sei sukha Krishna sukha poshe, ei hetu gopi preme nahi kama doshe. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, we find that the joy of the gopis nourishes the joy of Lord Krishna. For that reason, the fault of lust is not present in their love. Purport. By looking at the beautiful gopis, Krishna becomes enlivened, and this enlivens the gopis, whose youthful faces and bodies blossom. This competition of increasing beauty between the gopis and Krishna, which is without limitations, is so delicate that sometimes mundane moralists mistake these dealings to be purely amorous. But these affairs are not at all mundane, because the gopis' intense desire to satisfy Krishna surcharges the entire scene with pure love of Godhead, with not a spot of sexual indulgence. Text 196. Upetyapati sundari tati bhira bhira chitam. Excuse me. Smitnan kura karambite natad apanga bhangi shateho stanastavaka sancharanayana chanchari kanchalam raje vijayinam bhaje vipina deshatah keshavam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. I worship Lord Keshava. Coming back from the forest of Raja, he is worshipped by the gopis, who mount the roofs of their palaces and meet him on the path with 100 manners of dancing glances and gentle smiles. The corner of his eyes wander like large black bees around the gopis' breasts. Purport. This statement appears in the Keshavastaka 8 of the Stavamala compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. 197. Ara eka gopi premera swabhavika chinha ye prakare haya prema kama gandhahina. Translation. There is another natural symptom of the gopis' love that shows it to be without a trace of lust. 198. Gopi preme kare Krishna madhuyera pushti madhurye badhaya prema hana mahatushti. Translation. The love of the gopis nourishes the sweetness of Lord Krishna. That sweetness in turn increases their love, for they are greatly satisfied. 199. Priti Vishayanande Tad Ashrayananda Tanhanahi Nija Sukha Vanchara Sambandha. Translation. The happiness of the abode of love is in the happiness of the object of that love. This is not a relationship of desire for personal gratification. Text 200 and 201. Nirupadhi prema yanha tanha eiriti priti vishaya sukhi ashrayera priti nija prema nande Krishna seva nanda badhi seyanandera prati bhaktera haya mahakrodhe. Excuse me. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Whenever there is unselfish love, that is its style. The reservoir of love derives pleasure when the lovable object is pleased. When the pleasure of love interferes with the service of Lord Krishna, the devotee becomes angry towards such ecstasy. Purport. As mentioned above, the gopis are the predominated lovers and Shri Krishna is the predominator, the beloved. The love of the predominated nourishes the love of the predominator. The gopis had no desire for selfish enjoyment. Their feeling of happiness was indirect, for it was dependent on the pleasure of Krishna. Causeless love of Godhead is always so. Such pure love is possible only when the predominated is made happy by the happiness of the predominator. Such unadulterated love is exemplified when the lover deprecates her happiness if it hinders her from discharging her service. Text 202. Angasambharambham utungayantam premandam daruko nabhayandanta Kamasaratir vijane yena sakshad akshodiyan antarayo vyadhayayi. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Shri Daruka did not relish his ecstatic feelings of love, for they caused his limbs to become stunned and thus obstructed his service of fanning Lord Krishna. Purport. This verse is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3.2.62. Text 2 or 3. Govinda Prekshana Kshipi Baspa Purabhivarshinam Ucher Anindat Anandam Aravinda Vilochana. Translation and purport by Prabhupada. The lotus-eyed Radharani powerfully condemned the ecstatic love that caused a flow of tears that hindered her sight of Govinda. Purport. This verse is also from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.3.54. Text 204. Ara Shuddha Bhakta Krishna Prema Seva Vine Swasukhartha Salokyadi Nakare Grahane. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Furthermore, pure devotees never forsake the loving service of Lord Krishna to aspire for their own personal pleasure through the 5 kinds of liberation. Purport. A pure devotee of Krishna who loves him exclusively will flatly refuse to accept any sort of liberation, beginning from merging with the body of the Lord and extending to the other varieties of liberation, such as equality of form, opulence or abode, and the opulence of living near the Lord. Last verse for today, 205. Mataguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarva Guhashaye Manogatir Avichinna Yatha Gangam Bhasom Buddhao. Translation. Just as the celestial waters of the Ganges flow unobstructed into the ocean, so when my devotees simply hear of me, their minds come to me who reside in the hearts of all. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yes, Annapurna. Your hand is up, Annapurna. Did you have something to say?
Mataji, she sent a message saying she cannot hear, but we can hear you.
Yes. So maybe Annapurna, you can come back into the room. So we read so many verses about, we've been hearing about Gopis' love for Krishna, their emotions, what they feel, how they serve Krishna, how they've surrendered to Krishna. And here we can see that the Gopis and Krishna, they're complementing each other. Each one wants to give pleasure to each other. And both want to satisfy each other and both want to serve each other. So it's like a competition. And Srila Prabhupada says, spiritual competition is okay. Material competition is not okay, but spiritual, yes. But it should be with the thought of not trying to put the other devotee down. Oh, you sing nicely, let me sing better than you so that, I am praised more than you. No, it is out of love that spiritual competition is there. And that Prabhupada says is a healthy competition. Like the gopis, like one gopi serving Krishna, then the other gopis think, oh, she's serving so nicely, let me also try and serve Krishna. But there is no envy in that competition. So that is, and here when Krishna and gopis, when we see their interactions, you can see it's a win-win situation for both of them. Whether you're being served or you're serving, both are getting the pleasure. So here in one of the verses that we read, it says that the gopis' joy and pleasure is dependent on Krishna. So only when Krishna is happy, joyful, gets pleasure, then the gopis also get that pleasure. So it is interdependent. So from this, we can see that the gopis, they have no personal agenda on mind. That, if we do this, then we'll get this from Krishna. No selfish motive, no personal sense gratification, no personal agenda at all. All they want to do is focus on Krishna and to serve him and to make him happy. That is their only goal. Now, the verse number 195 is very, very important because Srila Prabhupada says that we have to be very careful in discussing the love of the gopis. As I mentioned even last week also, that I'm not qualified to talk about gopis' love for Krishna. All we can do is hear about it, from the Caitanya Caritamrta, hear from Srila Prabhupada and his purports, and just take on knowledge. Realization of gopis' love for Krishna depends on Krishna's mercy. So here we can see Srila Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that the love of the gopis has nothing to do with the lust. In material world, when a boy tells a girl or girl tells a boy, I love you, Srila Prabhupada says, actually they are saying, I lust you, because that is on the material platform. It is not on spiritual platform like the gopis. Gopis' love was completely spiritual, and Prabhupada says it had nothing to do with sex life at all, because their intense desire was to only give pleasure to Krishna. They were not interested. They did not decorate themselves and run towards Krishna to show off how beautiful I am. They decorated, themselves, dressed up very nicely for the pleasure of Krishna. That was that. And so here Prabhupada says we have to be very, very careful that we do not mistake gopis' love to the material love in this material world. So a question arises, if the gopis, they are so dedicated to Krishna, they love him, they are completely surrendered unto him. So the question is, what do we learn from this surrender? We are hearing, yes, we are taking on knowledge, but then Prabhupada says we should also contemplate on this knowledge. We should discuss this and try to understand, what do we learn from Gopi surrender? We learn that gopis, their only meditation was Krishna, Krishna, Krishna only. And their love for Krishna also was selfless. As we mentioned, there was no personal agenda. They didn't think that, I remember a long time ago when my husband and I, we used to give Bhagavad Gita classes in Dunwoody Park. So there was a couple who was very sincere and serious who would come. It's none of you, by the way, just to be clear. So they used to come and, sincerely chant 16 rounds and everything, but they had a personal agenda. And after some time, they stopped coming. Why? Because their personal desire was not satisfied by Krishna. That they were coming to the class, which is also good, that Krishna says, Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukriti no Arjuna, that 4 kinds of pious people come to me. Even someone wants money, if someone is in distress, wants knowledge or inquisitive, come to me. So it was okay. They came, they heard for a couple of years, but because their personal agenda was not fulfilled, they said it's not worthwhile progressing in Krishna consciousness. So, but with gopis, there is no personal agenda. Oh, Krishna, I'm doing this for you, so you have to do this for me. Not at all. It's selfless love, and there is no room for self-satisfaction. That is what people generally look in material world, right? That I'm going to pursue this so that, I get some satisfaction out of it. How many of you like to get satisfaction in your work? Right? Everybody, right? It's not that you're, just for the heck of it, you're working. No, we are looking for satisfaction. But gopis, they were only interested in satisfying Krishna. Now, Prabhupada says, when we satisfy Krishna, we automatically get satisfied. I don't know if you remember that story of this king who announced that anyone can ask me for anything and I'll give it to them. So there was a long line of all the people, right? Do you all remember that story? Yeah, so I don't need to repeat it. I don't want it to be boring. Huh? Live with me, yes. So the smart citizen, everyone asked for diamonds, gold, clothes, this, that. This smart man, he asked, Maharaj, can you come and stay in my house for 3 days? So then, of course, the ministers went to see where is the Maharaj going to stay. It was a small hut. They said, how can the king stay in a hut? So they built a big house for him with all the amenities and all the feast, food and servants, everything. And the king came and stayed and he went. So when he went, did he take the house with him? No, that house was for the smart guy. He used that house. So he used his intelligence. So that doesn't mean, we think in those terms, but at least we get an idea. When you have the king, you have everything. So when you have Krishna, you have everything. When we satisfy Krishna, we ourselves get satisfied. Like Prabhupada talks about watering the root of the tree. The whole tree gets nourished automatically. You don't have to water the leaves and flowers and fruits separately. So here, the gopis, their love for Krishna was such that they were not concerned about their own happiness, but they were happy. They were joyful. The more Krishna became joyful, the more they became joyful. So it was give and take situation over here. But unfortunately, in this material world, the main problem that Prabhupada says is the I and mine concept. Everything, what is going to give me pleasure, what is mine, I, me, and my philosophy, that is very prominent. If you notice from childhood, as soon as a child is born, what does the child do? grab onto things. Anything that the child sees, whether it's a toy, food, anything, just take. That consciousness is there right from birth. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
If one child is playing, they'll grab from the other child. It's all about getting, about possessions, how I can, and this consciousness goes on in adulthood also, how I can get more and more and more. And what does Narad Muni say? He says that to go back to Godhead, we cannot carry a heavy load with us on our shoulders. It has to be very, very light. How many of us travel? We all travel, right? How many of us like to travel light? No heavy bags. Pushing them, hurting the back, hurting the shoulders, right? Just one small handbag, sufficient, right? 2 saris, done.
For you.
Huh?
2 sarees enough for you.
And what?
2 sarees are enough for you, but not for everyone.
It's enough for me. It should be enough for everybody, right? It has to be very light. Narad Muni says that if we have a heavy load, if we have a heavy load of possessions, then it'll be hard for us to leave because we get so attached to it. So it has to be very, very light, that we don't have to struggle hard. Prabhupada says even an inch of desire will pull us back into this material world. Even an inch, just a teeny weeny desire. It could be any kind of desire. Any material desire is going to pull us back into this material world. There was this old lady, I heard this very nice story. This old lady, she used to, her way of living was to go to the forest, pick up, collect some dry sticks, go to the market, sell them, and then whatever she earned, she would, buy groceries, and this is how she lived. So one day she had a desire to eat kheer, sweet rice, which she couldn't afford on a daily basis. So she said, today I will go to the forest and I'll pick up a big load of sticks so that I get more money so that I can eat kheer. So sure enough, she collected a lot of sticks, and because she was old, it was very difficult for her. But somehow or the other, she managed to put it on her head. But while she was walking, the sticks fell down because they were too heavy. But that desire was very deep. I want to eat sweet rice. So then when we are in distress, what do? We call out to the Lord. Hey, Bhagwan. Bhagwan came. What do you want? She said, can you please just pick this bundle of sticks and put it on my head? Bhagwan is right in front of you. He can take you back to Godhead, where you can eat kheer every day without even having to collect the sticks and do all that mehnat. But no, she wanted that load to be put back. That is the situation of people in the material world. They want to take the load. They are happy to take the load. Why? Because the desire for sense gratification is there. In verse number 199, again, it was stressing on the happiness of Krishna, and that the Gopis, they were not interested in personal sense gratification at all. Why? Because their relationship with Krishna was pure, and it is still pure. So what is the qualification to go back to Godhead? Purity, right? Krishna, Srila Prabhupada says purity is a force. And how do we get pure? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to us, Cheto Darpanam Marjanam, that when we chant attentively, not just chant, not just minimum 16 rounds, when we chant attentively, then we start purifying our heart. When I was in Mayapur, excuse me, I noticed after Mangalarti, I was just, strolling while chanting, and so many devotees are there, they are also walking and chanting. So the atmosphere is so powerful, everyone chanting, everyone interested in just the holy name. So while I was strolling, from behind, I heard whistling. And I'm like, who's whistling early in the morning? It's 6 in the morning. And is this person whistling at me? I hope not. Why this whistling? So naturally you turn around to see. So I, very gradually, without being so obvious, I tried to look. And here was this devotee who was actually chanting. He was not whistling, he was chanting. And I'm like, what kind of chanting is this? What kind of chanting is that? I was shocked. But of course, it's not my place to correct him because I'm not that authority. I'm not, in any way connected. And it's not my place to, say anything. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are very, very fortunate that we have this opportunity of chanting and going back to Godhead. That's all we need. Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj, both they say that attentive chanting following 4 regulative principles can take us back to Godhead. That's all. So chanting is very, very, very important. That's the most important part of our Krishna consciousness. So how should we chant? What do you think? How should we chant? Attentively. How do you chant attentively? Listen to the sound vibrations. Now you listen to the sound vibrations only if you're not whistling, right? Which means that each and every part of the mantra has to be very clear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. How much time should it take to complete one round? 8 to 10 minutes. Then it is very clear. 8 to 10 minutes on each round. And concentrating, and it has to be loud enough so we can hear. It shouldn't be. That is not beneficial at all. Why? Because those sound vibrations are not going in the ears. And if they are not going in the ears, how will they go into the heart? So it has to be very clear, very precise, and loud enough not to disturb others. But others like to hear loud chanting, then that's fine also. But it has to be loud enough so that we can hear. Because our spiritual life depends on chanting. That's why I'm talking about chanting. Many times I have even told some of other devotees, when I hear them whistling, I have that relationship. So I tell them, no, don't whistle. As soon as you hear whistling sound, that means the chanting is incorrect. So we have to be very, very careful on chanting. And of course, Guru Maharaj also expects us to do Mangal Arti. See, all this is necessary. This process is necessary for us to go back to Godhead, if that is our goal. If our goal is something else, then it's okay. But if we really want to go back to Godhead, then Mangal Arati is important. Now, if Mangal Arati is important, then those of us who don't know the Mangal Arati should memorize it. If we chant, if we sing every day, then we will learn it. I know it took my husband and I a long time to learn Samsarada because Sanskrit words are so big. First time when we saw that, we said, this is not possible. Such big, big words. But when we started memorizing one line at a time, then gradually we were able to learn it. So please learn the Mangal Arati Samsara Dava. Then learn, of course, we all know the Nashinga prayer. We know the Tulasi Arti. Then Guru Puja is very, very important. Many times I've heard Guru Maharaj say that. He says that the spiritual master has taken a vow to take us back to Godhead. So it behooves us to glorify him on a daily basis. So we should sing the Guru Puja also. What is that? Shri Guru Charana. Yeah, Shri Guru Charana Padma. Very beautiful song. If we read the translation, it'll help us to progress spiritually because it's praying to the spiritual master, to help us remove this fire of material world by showering his mercy like a rainfall. It's very, very beautiful. So when we learn that, sometimes devotees think, I got initiated now, done. My job is done. Now my ticket to back to Godhead is already reserved. Yes, but if we miss the train, we will miss the train if we do not follow all of it properly. So here, verse number 200 is talking about that the gopis, again it's stressing that they had no desire for selfish enjoyment. They all expected to satisfy only Krishna. But in this material world, we expect everyone to satisfy us. We expect everyone to talk the way we want them to talk, sit the way we want them to sit, speak the way we want them to speak. Yes or no?
Yeah.
We have all these expectations that, okay, and if they don't meet our expectations, then what? Frustration. There is frustration. You see? So here, gopis, they had no expectations at all. They were completely dependent on Krishna. And Prabhupada says that their love is unadulterated. So what a level of surrender. Of course, there's a beautiful verse where the gopis, excuse me, they disapproved of the happiness that hindered their discharge of devotional service. So if there was anything that was an obstacle in serving Krishna but was giving them happiness, they didn't want that happiness. Why? Because they didn't want their devotional service to be hindered in any way. So Prabhupada says we should reject anything that is a hindrance on our path of bhakti. So we should do whatever it takes to reach our goal of going back to Godhead. If we are, seeing, of course, it's good to evaluate our own selves from time to time. And if we see that we are falling off the wagon, then we should become more vigilant before it's too late. Very, very important. So to do that, we can contemplate on our daily activities. What am I doing? Am I wasting time? Am I using my time fruitfully or not? If we are not able to, then we need to sit down and identify what are the obstacles, what are the weaknesses, what should I work on? And if we are unable to figure out, then we can always get guidance, but not go on with the life as it is, right? So hearing about gopis, we are doing that since a couple of verses. We have heard about their level of surrender, which is of course unimaginable for us. Only theoretically we can understand. But from this, we can learn that we can also try not to imitate the gopis, but to follow in their footsteps. You need some water? They'll bring it for you. हाँ, माधवी कर देगी गरम. So in verse number 202, there is talk about Daruka. Daruka is the charioteer of Krishna. So there's mention about him that whenever he saw Krishna, he used to feel ecstasy. And in that ecstasy, his limbs would get stiff, like then his service to Krishna would stop. He used to fan Krishna, and he didn't like that he didn't want to be in ecstasy because that was hindering his service to Krishna. He tried to control himself so that he can continue his service. So that shows that we should also try not to put a break in our service, no matter what. Prabhupada says we should not take vacation from bhakti. Just like we take vacation. Oh, I've worked Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I want to relax, right? Because these are the only 2 days I get. I remember someone, I was telling that person, why don't you join these classes on weekends? Said, no, weekends is for me to do laundry, cook for the whole weekend, keep, do grocery. These are no excuses. There is no vacation in bhakti. Bhakti is 24/7, no break at all. In verse number 204, it is said that they never forsake service to Krishna. Why? Because They didn't have an aspiration for personal pleasure, nor were they interested in 5 kinds of liberation. Now, we've heard from Srila Prabhupada, excuse me, we've learned from him 5 kinds of liberation. The first one is Shashti, which is achieving opulences equal to that of the Lord. Sarupya, having a form like that of the Lord. Samipya, living as a personal associate of the Lord. Salokya, living on the Vaikuntha planet. And Sayujya, merging into the Brahman feature of the Lord. These are the 5 kinds of liberations. But devotees are not interested in any of these kinds of liberation. In fact, they refuse any sort of liberation. Why? Because their goal is, excuse me, their goal is only to give pleasure to Krishna. So whatever pleases Krishna. What pleases Krishna is what pleases the Guru. What pleases the Guru is following his instructions. And what are his instructions? Very, very straightforward. Chant attentively, follow 4 regulative principles strictly, read Srila Prabhupada's books, visit the temple on Sundays, visit the temple on festival days, not when convenient, preach and serve as much as possible in the temple. Is that very difficult? Not at all. If we are not following any of these, that means we are committing an offense. What is the third offense of the 10 offenses? To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So if we are not following his instructions, that means we are committing an offense. And offense is very dangerous for our bhakti. Especially Vaishnava aparadha is very, very dangerous for our bhakti. I was listening to Chandramauli Swami on the Harrisburg morning class, and the whole class was about Vaishnava aparadha, and I was so happy to hear that, because we have so many doubts about it. And it's always, even if we don't have doubts, it's always good to keep hearing about it so that we are very, very careful. So he said that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 aspects to Vaishnava aparadha. The most grave one is to kill a Vaishnava, which obviously we won't do, right? But to kill a Vaishnava is the greatest offense. The second is to blaspheme that Vaishnava, any devotee, anyone who's chanting. If we blaspheme, in other words, we find faults in them. Oh, you didn't do this, you didn't say that, you this and you that. When that thought process is there in the mind, all the negativity in the mind, then that is an offense. Then what is happening? We are killing our own Bhakti Lata Bij, our own devotional creeper, we are crushing it. Then he said the next is envy. We are envious of other Vaishnavas. Oh, that one has that. How come I don't have that? I also need that. That envy also is a Vaishnava aparadha. Then is getting angry at Vaishnavas. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Yeah. You didn't do this to me. You said this to me. That anger is also Vaishnava aparadha. Then he says, being disrespectful to Vaishnavas. Are we conscious of this? When we meet devotees, are we conscious? Are we disrespecting? What kind of disrespect is possible? What do you think? Disrespectful. How?
Mind, body, action.
Yes, mind, body, and actions, but mainly actions. In the mind, of course, mind is such a culprit, all the time thinking negatively about everybody, right? I am the best and everyone else is useless. So how can we be disrespectful physically?
Acknowledge the presence of the devotee.
What?
Acknowledge the presence of the devotee by
Yes,
greeting
not
him.
acknowledging the presence of the devotee. Not giving a smile, not wishing Hare Krishna, even not thinking of in return, what do I get? Am I getting that respect in return? Not to worry about that. Do our duty. When we see a Vaishnava with a smile, Wish Hare Krishna. Find out, how are you? How's your spiritual health? Not how's your physical health. We concentrate so much. I also feel embarrassed when someone asks me, how's your health? Because then you have to give the whole biodata of, from where do I start? From head or from toe or from where? It's like all over, right? How about spiritual health? This is what they used to do in Vedic times. When they met devotees, they would inquire, how is your spiritual health? Isn't that wonderful? I heard this from my husband that I think in Germany, if you ask them, how are you? They only say thank you. They don't go on rattling, I have a headache, I have this or that. No, all they say is thank you. Thank you for inquiring. That's it. So here, disrespectful is not acknowledging the presence of the devotee and not appreciating. You see, the last one is not being happy seeing a Vaishnava. Oh, did we ever think about that? Not feeling happy to see a Vaishnava. Vaishnava association should make us so happy. I feel happy when all of you come here on Saturday. We sit together, we read, we hear, we discuss, and then we eat prasadam, even though it's just a banana, but we eat together, right? That happiness should be there when we see. It's not that when we look at a Vaishnava, we frown. Oh, again, here she is. Again, I have to see her face. No, I have to be happy seeing. So Chandramauli Maharaj was giving these, beautiful instructions on Vaishnava Aparadh. Now, the last verse for today is, before I go to the last verse, he also mentioned that our spiritual life is in danger if we are blaspheming the devotee. Any of these six, not being happy, disrespectful, angry, envy, yes, angry, envy, blaspheming, and killing. Killing, of course, we won't do, but sometimes words can kill. Have you seen that? The words are more stronger than a physical action. I remember my husband gives a nice poem about the tongue. I don't know if he can come online and talk about that beautiful poem, the tongue. Can you, Git Govind, can you tell us about that tongue, that very nice poem? Tongue is so soft and meek, or something.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
The boneless tongue, so soft and weak, can crush and kill, declared the Greek.
Yes. Thank you. See, it's very soft and meek, but you can kill and crush without words. So you have to be very careful what we say, how we say, to whom we say. Always have that humble attitude. I know nothing. I am not the controller. And appreciate. Prabhupada says, even Guru Maharaj says, when we glorify the good qualities of devotees, then we are the ones who benefit. Instead of finding faults, instead find faults with ourselves, magnify our faults and magnify the good qualities of other devotees. So finally, the last verse for today, where it's talking about simply hearing about Krishna. When we hear about Krishna, we can fix our mind on Krishna. And the easy solution is when we chant attentively. Why? Because when we are chanting, we are hearing. And when we are hearing, we are fixing our mind on Krishna. That's the easy solution. Now, I was listening to one lecture from Hillsborough, North Carolina, and he talked about Rishi Chari Gopis. And that I became curious. I've never heard about Rishi Chari Gopis. Have you heard about Rishi Chari Gopis? So then I started researching and I came across a lecture by Shivram Maharaj, and he explained about the gopis. Would you like to hear about different gopis? So he said there are different kinds of gopis. One is sadhana siddha or Rishi Chari Gopis. That means they are the great sages in Treta Yuga during the time of Lord Ramachandra. And they got a benediction. Lord Ramachandra said, next time when I come down as Krishna, you will appear as my gopis. So these are sadhana siddha or rishichari gopis, and they are also, these gopis are Vedas personified. They are also the Vedas. Then there are sadhaka gopis, which means they are practitioners who chant the Gopal mantra. I don't remember the Gopal mantra, but they wanted to become gopis. And so when Lord Ramachandra saw that they are advanced and they are at the stage of anartha nivriti, where unwanted things are taken out from the heart, with association with Lord Ramachandra, they became purified, but they did not attain perfection. And then they got the benediction to become the gopis. Now, it says that the home of Rajavasis also falls in 3 categories: most advanced, intermediate, and less advanced. The most advanced gopis, they remain single. They don't get married. And they associate with Krishna in an intimate way. They are single. They are not married. And as soon as they would hear the flute of Krishna, they would run immediately to Krishna because they had no responsibilities. They had no one, who could stop them. So, but the others, like the intermediate gopis, they had family life. They were grahastas. So they could not go because the husbands would stop them, children would stop them. So in that pangs of separation, sometimes most of the time it would take them too late to go to Krishna, run away from the house and go to Krishna. And the ones who were less advanced gopis, I've never heard of all this before, less advanced gopis, they were unable to go because their husbands locked them up, didn't allow them to go. So they gave up their material bodies. Now Maharaj says that doesn't mean they died. They gave up their material bodies and they called out to Krishna, and Krishna, because of their absorption in Krishna, Krishna burnt away all their attachment. And then they came to see Krishna and they saw him, embraced him, and they became perfect. And then they would leave, following nights, because now they were perfect. So the following nights, they were able to go back to Krishna whenever he played the flute. Then there is Nitya Siddha Gopis. And in that category is Srimati Radharani, Chandravali. These 2 are the chief gopis. And then there are demigoddesses, the Devis. They also come as gopis. It seems there are 3 billion gopis according to the Skanda Purana. Now there are 5 groups of these gopis. One is Sakhis, which means they are ordinary friends like Vrinda. Then there are Nitya Sakhis, who are eternal friends like the Manjaris, Mana Manjari, Ananga Manjari, Prema Manjari. These Manjaris, they are Nitya Sakhis. Prana Sakhis, they are intimate friends like Shashi. Priya Sakhis, they are like Madhavi. And Parama Preshta Sakhi is Radharani, Ashta Sakhis. Have you seen in Mayapur those Ashta Sakhis, right? There is Indulekha, Chitra, Champaklata, Lalita, Vishakha, Tungavidya, Rangadevi, Sudevi. These are the Ashta Sakhis, 8 Sakhis which are there in Mayapur temple. So these are Parama Preshta Sakhis. Yes. So this all information Shivaram Maharaj was giving in his lecture about the gopis. It's good to know. Of course, I don't know if you remember what you heard just now. It usually goes from here and comes out from here. It doesn't stay here. So you have to keep hearing and reading again and again so that we can understand all the different kinds of gopis. So we are very grateful to Srila Prabhupada that because of him, we have a process by which we can go back to Godhead. Now, I also heard one thing which you'll be surprised to hear. There was a question asked, I think, to Shivaram Swami. I'm not sure. I hear so many lectures. I don't remember who said that. So the question was asked from the audience that the devotees, after they give up the body, do they go back to Krishna Loka? What do you think? Yes or no?
Is it devotee?
Yes, a devotee. Yes. Does a devotee go back to Goloka Vrindavan after death? Make a guess.
Yes.
Yes. Who else says yes or no? Doubtful.
No question mark, no question.
A question mark? No, I want an answer. Yes or no? Not a question mark.
Just said not sure if that way. Just in the devotee doesn't need a ticket for the Goloka.
Yes. The devotee does not go back to Godhead after giving up the body. Then where does the devotee go?
Interim place where
What is that interim place? That interim place is the devotee goes back to the material world where Krishna is performing his pastimes, goes to that material world, takes part in that Lila of Krishna, gets perfect, and then goes back to Goloka Vrindavan. Isn't that beautiful? That hope is there. Okay, if I don't go back to Goloka, at least I will see Krishna. I will be part of his pastimes, even though it's in the material world. So,
Isn't it better than the going to the Goloka Vrindavan then?
is
Because
it
you are
better?
able to see the Krishna directly.
But you'll see Krishna in Goloka anyway.
Some cases they would say, "Allowed to go to the Krishna." You are in Goloka, like Kamsa. He is not allowed to go to the Krishna's path. He is in there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what it
Okay.
is, because any.
So it's good to be favorable bhakti to Krishna.
We are in-
Yes.
So we cannot see the Biden.
Yeah, we don't even want to see.
Similarly, in the Goloka Vrindavan, so big place, you maybe get place or service in some places, but you won't see Krishna.
So it's a good idea to come back to material world. So Krishna's arrangement is so perfect. Come back to the material world, take part in his pastimes in this material world, become perfect, and then go back to Goloka Vrindavan. So yes.
one of the lectures, obviously, I don't remember which one, they said that before that also there may be an interim place depending on how much you are trained. So if
Mhm,
you're not fully trained,
mhm,
somehow or another if you remember Lord Krishna,
mhm, mhm.
then there's some interim place where you actually get trained and then you go.
Then
to
you
the
go.
national
Okay.
path.
Which is that place? Like a boot camp.
They have been
Yeah.
saying, if we are not fully, but because we
Yes.
remember, then we go.
Yes, we get the opportunity. Yes. So why not work on the boot camp here itself? So we don't have to go to the interim place and then we can go straight. Yes. Yes.
So how did Prabhupada, he went to the boot camp also?
No. Prabhupada is a direct representative of Krishna. He's
Also,
what.
Uttam Adhikari, they were-
Yes. So Srila Prabhupada's level,
Your
yes.
question was like, if a devotee is where he goes, right?
A devotee, and not a pure devotee, a devotee, yes. And yeah, you said normal devotee. Yeah, hopefully there are no abnormal devotees. Hopefully all are normal. Okay, so we'll end here. If anyone has any questions or